Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're making this adorable filet crochet pouch. It has a cute little bead decal and it is the perfect size. It's not too big, not too small, but it still does hold quite a bit. This filet crochet bag is an awesome multi-purpose bag. I am personally using it to store my makeup, but you can use it to pack school supplies, hair accessories, whatever you so choose. There is a grid that goes along with this tutorial and I will have it in the description, but also have it available on your screens for easier access when doing the tutorial. For this project, you're going to need a crochet thread or a lightweight yarn. Mine came out to approximately 75 grams worth of yarn, and I did double strand my crochet thread for a sturdier feel. You're also going to want to have a 2.75 millimeter crochet hook or something close to it. If you don't have that exact, that is fine. You'll also need the B-grid, which will be found in the tutorial, a darning needle, a pair of scissors, a couple of stitch markers, some buttons, and a needle and thread, and of course, a rocking playlist as always. This tutorial won't have any background music, so you can play your favorite songs as you work on your project. I don't know about you, but I love to crochet with a good song or movie in the background. Don't worry, you'll hear my voice, there's just going to be no background music. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Now let's go ahead and get on into the tutorial. So to start off this project, you're first going to make a chain of 68. Once you have your chain of 68, you're going to count 5 chains over and do your first double crochet into the 5th chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and double crochet into the 5th. So that is our very first box, and now we're going to chain 1, skip the next chain, and do 1 double crochet into the chain that follows. Second box done, and we're just going to keep repeating that all the way down the length of our row. Okay, so I made it to the end of my row. This is what my work looks like so far, and you should be able to go back and count 33 of these little boxes. So then what we're going to do from here is we're going to turn our work on its side, and we're going to do a few single crochets over this side bar on the end here. And I'm going to take this tail end and I'm just going to fold it over so I end up crocheting over top of it. But so now over top of this side bar, we're going to put 4 single crochets. So reach around that side bar, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 1, and just do that 3 more times. After you have made your 4 single crochets, go ahead and take whatever you're using as a stitch marker and put it on the very first of those 4 single crochets. So I'm going to just count backwards. So this was my last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes on this stitch right here. So now that I have my stitch marker here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do single crochets along this edge until I get to the other end. And then we'll do a few more single crochets into that side double crochet bar. So I did 4 single crochets into this one side bar here. Then we're going to go into the other end of this double crochet stitch here, and we're going to do 1 single crochet. Then go into that chain 1 space and do 1 single crochet. And then go into the other side of the stitch of this double crochet here and do your next single crochet. And you're just going to keep working those single crochets all the way down the length of your row. So I'll meet you guys once I get to the other end. Okay, so I just did single crochets all the way along this one side, and I'm ending off in the double crochet or the other side of the double crochet stitch right before I get to my side little chain or bar. And once you get to that point, you're going to do 5 single crochets into this side bar on this end instead of the 4 that we did on the other. So just 1 more. So I'm going to go ahead and do 5 single crochets around this side bar. 5 single crochets done. Now I'm just continuing to work my way around this piece, and you just turn it to the other side, and then you are going to do the same thing we did for the other side. So in the other end of this double crochet stitch right here, we're going to do 1 single crochet over top of that stitch, then go into the chain 1 space with 1 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet into the next double crochet stitch. And you're just going to keep repeating that until you get back to the stitch marker. So I'll meet you guys once we've made it back around to our starting point. Okay, so I'm almost done with this round. I did all of my single crochets along this edge, except I wanted to do this last one together with you so you wouldn't get confused. So I did 1 double crochet over top, or excuse me, I did 1 single crochet over top of this double crochet stitch here. Now I'm going to do 1 more single crochet into this sidebar here where we started off our single crochets. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off my stitch marker and I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch or first single crochet of this round. After that, you can go ahead and chain 4. The first 3 of these chains counts as your first double crochet, and the chain 1 is, or I should say the last chain is the chain 1 space that sits in between your 2 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start building up our work from here. So after your chain of 4, you're going to go ahead and skip the next stitch and then work 1 double crochet into the stitch that follows. So I'm going to skip this one, which I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to see because it's white yarn, but I'm skipping this one and then I'm double crocheting into the one that follows. Then I'm going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then double crochet into the stitch that follows that one. And it's kind of hard to see, but as you maybe can kind of see here, I'm skipping this stitch and I'm double crocheting into this stitch, which sits above this double crochet stitch at the base of my work here. So that's a good way to help you kind of keep track of where your first stitch or first double crochet should go when you're trying to figure it out on the side here if you couldn't tell. So I'm yarning over, skipping this one, double crocheting into the next. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around my work until I get back to this very first chain of 4 that I started off with. So chaining 1, skipping the next stitch, double crocheting into the stitch that follows, which also just so happens to line up with the double crochet from that row below it. So go ahead and work your way around, and I'll meet you guys at the end of this row. I made it back to my starting point. I just did my last double crochet. Now I need to chain 1, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the 3rd chain of my chain 4. So that marks the end of my row, and as you can see, my work is already like folding over. That is exactly what we want. So going into the next 2 rows, we're going to do the same thing that we did for this previous row. So you're going to start off with a chain of 4. Then you're going to go ahead and skip the chain 1 space and double crochet over top of the previous row's double crochet stitch. Then chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet over top of the next stitch. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, double crochet over the next double crochet stitch. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around this round. Once you get back to your starting point, remember to end off on a chain 1 and then slip stitch into the 3rd chain of your chain 4. And you're going to do that for 2 more rows. So I'm going to do these 2 rows and then I'll meet up with you guys. Okay, so I finished the 2 rows. So as you can hopefully see here, I have the base row right along this bottom here. And then you turn it on your side and you see I have 3 of these rows done. Now we're going to start to bring in the fillet chart. So we're going to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing in regards of like the mesh, but we're going to allocate a certain amount of these little mesh boxes to add in our grid. So what you're gonna do, just to make sure we have the same stitch count, I counted all these little boxes in just like the last row that I did, and I have 68 of them. And when I fold my work in half, I have 33 on one side, 33 on the other, and then there's one on each of these sides that you can't really see too well when it's folded. So that's, you know, my last two, they got me to 68. So what I did was I took 4 stitch markers and just folding it perfectly in half, looking at one side where I had the 38, I counted 5 stitches or 5 of these boxes inward on each side, and on the 6th mesh box, I put a stitch marker on either end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put a stitch marker on the 6th one in, same thing on this side, and then I flipped my work over and I did the exact same thing. So both sides are equal because I do want to have this grid on both sides of my work. And now what we're going to do here is you're just going to keep continuing, like working up your mesh around and around. But once you get to your stitch markers, you're going to start doing your fillet chart. Now, if this isn't your first fillet crochet project, this should be very simple for you. If this is your first fillet crochet project, I definitely suggest you check out the video I did on how to fillet crochet, just to explain a few things. But because we are working it around, when you're looking at your chart, you're not going to be reading it back and forth in rows. You're only going to be approaching it from one direction. So that should make things a little bit simpler. So what you're going to do is from where you left off, which I actually kind of started into this next round, you start your chain of 4, you do your mesh as normal. Once you get past the stitch marker, because I put it on the 5th stitch, so the stitch right after it starts or indicates the very first stitch of the grid, then you're going to go and do however many more of these open mesh boxes you need. Then you do your filled box, which we just do by putting like 2 connected double crochets together, or you could just do one double crochet into the mesh box, and then just keep working your way across. Then once you reach your other stitch marker, you're going to go ahead and just do your normal mesh from there till you get to the other stitch marker. And then you repeat yourself going in the same direction as you did for the other side. Count however many open boxes you have, do those, then do however many filled boxes, and you know, just keep following the grid. So it's very simple, and you're just going to keep doing that for the full length of the grid. So however many rows are in the grid, just keep going until that's done. One thing that I forgot to mention is that when doing the grid, you notice the first 3 rows are all open, just like regular mesh stitches. There's no filled boxes. That is the 3 rows that we've already done. So you can go ahead and just jump straight into the 4th row, which is the start where you'll notice we have our first filled box, and there's only one, so it makes it really simple. But I did want to point that out. You're not starting from the very bottom, you're starting from row 4 of the grid. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that part, and then I'll meet back with you guys and show you what we do from there. Okay, I've just finished all of my rounds. My grid is now done. I ended off my grid, which it shows in the grid, but it ends off with 3 rounds of just regular mesh, which is how we started off at the bottom down here, just to keep everything symmetrical. So now next up, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1, and then you're going to go ahead and single crochet into the same stitch that you just, did the chain 1 from. And then go ahead and put 1 single crochet into the chain 1 space. And then go ahead and put 1 single crochet into the very next stitch. And that's all we're going to be doing. We're just going to be doing single crochets all the way around our work into every single stitch, as well as every chain 1 space. That is what we're going to do for this round, as well as 2 rounds after that. So we're going to have 3 rounds of just regular single crochets. So I'm going to do those, and then I'll meet back up with you guys. I made my way around. I did 3 rows of just regular single crochets. Make sure you don't cut your yarn. We're going to try and minimize the amount of straight ends that you have to weave in at the end of this project. So next, what you're going to do, for however many buttons you have, that's the amount of stitch markers that you want to go ahead and grab. And you're going to figure out the placement of where you want your buttons and the little loops to close off everything, like where you want it to sit. So I had 6 buttons, so I got a hold of 6 stitch markers and I just spaced them out evenly just on one side. And then what you're going to do next is, instead of cutting off your yarn, you're going to just chain 1 and turn your work. And you're going to slip stitch into every single one of these stitches until you get to your first stitch marker. So into every stitch, I'm just slip stitching. And this is just, again, to eliminate me having to have so many ends that I have to weave in later. Okay, now I just got to my stitch marker, or I should say I'm in the stitch right before my stitch marker. The next what we're going to do is we're going to make a chain. You want to make sure your chain is roughly like the same length as your button, because you want to make sure that you're able to slide it over. And if you make it too small, the loop, then you're not going to be able to get your button, like, you know, get it over your button. But also if you make it too long, then it's going to come undone and your bag won't stay closed. So let me keep my button there. I'm going to start off by just doing a chain of 5 and see if that seems like it'll be enough. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I chained 5 and I'm sitting my button over top of it, and as you can see, it like fits perfectly. So what I'm going to do, just to make sure I have a little bit of wiggle room, I'll just add 1 more chain. Then you can go ahead and remove your stitch marker, and you're going to go ahead and slip stitch into the stitch where you had your stitch marker. Okay, and let me put this on here just so I can double check and make sure that my little loop is big enough. So this is the loop that I have now created for me to be able to stick my button through. So I'm just gonna pretend as if this is on here, secured properly, and yep, I can get my button on there. So I have nothing to worry about. I know that 6 single crochets is more than enough for me to close off my bag. So now what I'm gonna do, it's very simple. All I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to slip stitch into each of my stitches here till I get to the stitch right before my stitch marker. After I've slip stitched into the stitch right before my stitch marker, then I'm going to chain the number that you need to make your loop, which for me is 6. Then I will go ahead and slip stitch into the stitch where I had my stitch marker and just keep going all the way down the length of the one side where we have all of our stitch markers. So I'm going to continue to do this, and then I'll meet you guys at the end of this row. Alrighty, so I made it across this one side. After I got to my last loop, all I did was I just decided to keep it even on both sides. I slip stitched my way over to the corner, and then I chained 1 and cut my yarn there. So all that is left is for me to take my needle and thread, and I'm just going to sew these buttons onto my work. I suggest that when you do this, you don't sew the buttons on too far down into the project. Like, try to keep it a little bit closer up to the top of your work, just so everything looks smooth when you like actually go to like close your work. But that's just a personal suggestion. If you care to do differently, do as you please. But I'm going to go ahead and hand sew these on here, and then I will meet back with you guys and show you my finished product. This is what your final product should look like. Be sure to tag me in any photos that you post of your bags, and stay tuned because tomorrow we're going to have a new tutorial uploaded. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!